Welcome to Health Oddity, the show that strips away the jargon and hype surrounding all things health and fitness to help you live a long, strong and energetic life. Lining up at the bar this week, here's Peter Lant, Paul Bassett and James St. Pierre.
Hello and welcome to the Health Oddity podcast, episode 137. You have as your hosts and your guests today and your presenters, just the three of us today. We have for the next 3 or 4 or possibly 5 weeks guests lined up. Some big guests that I've kind of put out on the Instagram and the Facebook and that sort of thing. So we thought we would take another opportunity, just the three of us, to talk. We did have some kind of topics that we were going to talk about last week, and we kind of went in a slightly separate direction last week. So we're going to kind of work on those things and start with those topics as a kind of a bit of a launch pad for the conversation today. And again, we'll see where we take it, but we're going to be slightly more focused, or we know where we're starting from. We're not quite sure where we will finish, as always, but that's what we're going to do today. So before we crack on, I will introduce you to our usual hosts. Now, it's chucking it down here, Pete. We just had a conversation, but Mr. Peter Lant in Bath, how are you doing?
I'm wet.
But didn't you say it's sunny out there now?
Well, it was. It's not so much now, but I'm in. We were talking about this before we started, weren't we? I'm in clothes rotation at the moment because everything I own is wet. So it's all drying off, and then the dry stuff I put on, and then the wet stuff gets dry, and then I put that on, but it gets wet again. But I keep getting it wrong as well. So yesterday I went out on a massive walk with Sid. I met Sean in the pub after work, and we had a couple of beers. And then when we walked back from the pub home, which is like 7 minutes, I got wet to my underpants. It just hammered it down. It was biblical. So then today it said it was going to be like that. So I went out in my full waterproofs and I just boiled. It was like boiling the bag me because it was sunny. So I'm just like, I can't get it right. And then just before I got home, it hammered it down. So I got wet anyway, just as I was getting in. So yeah. I sound happy, but it's getting right on my nerves, to be honest.
Yes, absolutely tipping it down out there today. Now we're out my window, but yeah, it's kind of sun and then rain and then sun and then rain. But luckily, we're all indoors in the dry at the moment. Mr. Paul Bassett, how are you?
I can't imagine a stronger argument for Zoom, really, than what Pete just described.
Exactly.
Especially when you do all of your training outside as well, Pete.
He's in his pants, naked, in a boiler bag suit. I mean, I don't know.
You can't walk a dog on Zoom, though. That's the problem.
No,
it's true.
That's it has to be done. So, yeah.
I mean, I'm sure you could hook up some kind of treadmill with a virtual reality screen at the front, and
I could do. I'll just get a swing ball for the back garden and just get to walk around that.
Pete's description of his waterproofs brings me back to an early childhood memory of my dad wearing a cheap plastic Father Christmas outfit that was so tight because it was too small, and he just squeaked around. And I remember screaming and running out the room when he walked down the stairs, and he had a plastic beard even. So I don't know if it was that kind of latex kind of thing.
Did he look like? You're probably not allowed to talk about this now, but
don't say anything that's going to get us in trouble, Pete.
No, this won't. It was the character in Little Britain, wasn't it? In the Only Gay in the Village.
Oh, yeah.
Did he look like that? But for the Christmas version.
Yeah. Well, it's more like League of Gentlemen, when they all went in those kind of asphyxiation suits. That's a good episode.
Well. You never know. Your dad might have been like some sort of gimp, and you didn't, and he never told you. You're like, "Oh, Dad, that's a bit tight," and he's like, "Yeah, it was an accident, son."
These deep, dark memories being pulled up. I'm glad. I didn't know it was
you
go
just
this
told
way.
the whole world that. Well done.
I mean, Pete, James just kind of gave us a disclaimer at the beginning, basically apologizing for the tangents we went on last week, and I don't know if we've got off to an even worse start this week.
No, this is what we were going to talk about, wasn't it?
Oh, is this what we're going to talk about?
Yeah.
Deep
the
deep dark
podcast.
childhood memories.
I was going to actually say before we started, because you tagged me in something, Pete, and I have I will try
Yes.
and find it while we're on. And Gary, yes, indeed.
Bring it back to
Because
the plan.
yeah, back to the plan, back on script. Yes, Gary Clark, former guest of the show, friend of the show, has announced that the Britain's Disabled Strongman competition, hopefully this is the last date change, because there was a date change, wasn't there? But it's now set for the 26th and the 27th of August in Chard in Somerset. And I don't know if he's done the same. He asked me if I'd be happy to kind of help out a bit and be a loader and a weight person.
Yeah, I said to him, yeah, do you need a hand in any way? I've tagged James. He said, yeah, do you want to be on the loading crew?
Yes.
Maybe you could ask your good lady as well. And I was like, I don't think Sean will be up for that.
But no, I've booked the weekend off work today, so I will be winging my way.
You're not cheap. Not after your appearances on Radio Essex.
Yeah,
BBC Essex.
BBC Essex. Yeah, you're not cheap anymore, are you?
Sitting with a bona fide.
You're going to be doing the announcements as celebrity guest.
It'll be like to talk about what you talked about the other week. It'll be like on Phoenix Nights, Chorley FM.
Yeah, in your ears. But you were even recognised by the cleaner, weren't you?
I was. Yes. So, I will be coming to Bath. I don't know. I'll book because I haven't been to Bath for probably 25 years. So and Chard is very close to that, isn't it?
So, yeah, just up the road.
Yeah, so I'll probably drive up on the Friday night, and 2 days there. That'll be good. That'll be very good. Cool, excellent. So one of the things, or a few of the things that we were going to talk about today, was I did a post on Instagram, I think it was, and then I've been having some discussions with members about it. And Pete and I had a little discussion last week before we started recording the podcast, which was around, and this is kind of just a broad concept that we can kind of talk about. And I'm sure that you guys talk about it with your members in a roundabout way. And I'm sure that it will resonate with lots of the people listening. But it was to do with the results that you get from exercise and healthy lifestyle and training and nutrition and that sort of thing, and the balance of the amount of time that you spend in control versus the time you spend out of control. And the gist of the post was basically that when you're young, when you're in your teens, when you're in your 20s, maybe even when you're in your 30s, you don't actually have to give that much conscious thought to a lot of things that you do, or I certainly didn't. In terms of what I used to eat, how much sleep I would get, what kind of training I did, because when you are young, when your metabolism is kind of revving through the roof, you can kind of get away with a lot more. And we mentioned before coming on air, you can go out and you can have a few drinks, or you could even get a bit drunk and you have a few hours, wake up, go to work the next day, and you pretty much be unscathed. You can kind of train ad hoc as and when you like, and you kind of get okay results. And when you're in your probably mid 30s, I would say onwards, and certainly 40s and 50s and 60s, you have to be very, very conscious and spend a lot more time, or a greater proportion of your time in control rather than out of control. So that was kind of the gist of the post. So, I mean, on a personal level for you two guys, do you recognize that, I suppose, A, in yourself, and B, in the kind of clients that you work with? And do you have any discussions around this kind of thing with people you work with? So I don't know, one of you, whichever one wants to grab the mic first.
I'll grab the mic. Which, quite literally. When I got about 26, piled on a ton of weight. It was literally, I was a switch where I suddenly went from being super skinny and just eating what the hell I wanted to suddenly just putting weight on. But then again, I think the thing is that as you get older, some of the other things start loading onto your kind of plate, really, other than food. I was going through I had got into a longer term relationship. My work was becoming increasingly more challenging and chaotic. There was kind of the sleep patterns all over the place. There was a lot more stress in my life, and I think all those things, it's just when you're like 18, 19, you just really don't have any responsibilities. And I think that's the one thing that people don't take into account when they're coming up with a program. Is why I like to sit down with clients before I even start them on any program, is to say, okay, well, it's like I took on someone today and they're like, they travel, and it's like I can put in front of them the best program and expect them to train 3 times a week. But if they're traveling for 10 days of every month, if you don't take that into account, it's going to affect their perception of their progress. And I think as you get older, of course, you get those metabolic changes, and you get injuries that you carry with you, and you get you lose muscle mass as you get older, etc. But really, those things are actually, I think, negligible in terms of the weight and of responsibility that we all start to shoulder as we get older, and we're also becoming more entrenched in behaviors. And I think that's what I was finding, is I was just getting more and more stress in my life, and that led me to rely on behaviors which in the past wouldn't have been a problem, because they wouldn't have been the main way I solved issues. But they became the main solution to the stress that I was experiencing, and therefore, I took them to the logical conclusion, which is, if you just turn to a bit of alcohol just to chill out in the night, or you have sweets, or you have like puddings to relax, and then you suddenly find that that's the main way you deal with stress, and you get more stress and more stress. You require more puddings, more cigarettes, more alcohol. And that's where I went, you see. And I think it's, no one ever teaches you how to shoulder the burden of responsibility. You just taught how to answer questions in an exam, and that's not life, really, once you get past 25.
No, that's really interesting, and I think that kind of touches on. We'll go to Pete in a second, but I think that kind of touches on one of the other kind of models, if you like, that we were going to discuss, which was this concept of either spiraling down or spiraling up, which we'll kind of come to. And like you say, the way that you've kind of tackled that question is very interesting, because you attribute certain coping mechanisms to the changes that you felt through stress. So you turn to certain things when life is hard, or life is not so good, or when you're stressed, and then the impacts that those have. So we'll kind of talk about those a little bit later. That's great. Pete, how about yourself?
Yeah, I mean, mine's a similar story to Paul's we've spoke about before, haven't we? But I had a chat with my guys about it last Thursday, actually, in the mindset group that I've got. We'll do like a call on a Tuesday and a Thursday night every week, and we'll just sit down and chat about stuff. I might like teach some stuff in there, or if they've got burning questions or whatever, then we'll talk about that. But I opened up with this because it's very common, and we'd had a chat about it last week before we started recording, and then talked about something completely different. But it was just all about how easy it is to get into talking about the spirals, how easy it is to get into a downward spiral, even when you've been doing stuff that brings you out of that. So where Paul said he got to, which was where I got to, which was kind of, I was that's a horrible word as well, but I was flabby, not fat. Like I was talking about this yesterday. When someone gets fat, but they're like, it's like solid. I wasn't. Mine, everything wobbled. And it was
Mine was wobbly as well.
Yeah,
I didn't have that Russian belly, which you could.
Yeah, it's a horrible feeling. It's a horrible feeling. And I tried to run it off, basically. I didn't change the way I ate or anything like that, or drank or anything. I just tried to do half marathon. I was like, I'll just do some half marathons. And it did help me. I lost weight, but then I just put it all back on when I'd finished. And then I decided to row 1,000,000 meters. And I just got bored and hurt and sore and tired and, dejected and all of that.
Well, that's it. We all do these grand gestures. We do grand gestures.
Yes. So
we go, right, I'm going to run a marathon.
Yeah. So I was talking to my guys about this, and it's if you get into the place where you listen, because Paul's just brought something brilliant there. You mask everything, you mask all of this stuff that you're doing. And I hated being flabby, and I wanted to lose it all, but I didn't want to eat differently, and I didn't want to do this, and I didn't want to do that. And I had all these not excuses, but all these things of here's why I can't, here's why I can't, here's why I can't. And then actually, when you start to learn about like how you talk to yourself and everything's just a story, and it's like, no, you're just choosing not to, but you don't realize it. And I was talking to my guys about this, and that's what we talk about. That's what we do. We've got like there's a process of like going through journaling and counting your wins and having a goal, but not setting a goal and then saying, right, I can sit back now because I've set the goal. It's like, yeah, but the goal is a year away or whatever. You've got to close the gap between now and that by doing things every day. What was it I mentioned on that the other day? Anyway, yeah, doing something today to get you that bit closer, and then tomorrow why did that work? How can I do something differently, or it did work and I'm going to carry on? So I was speaking about that, and it's very once you start doing that, it's easy to get into that habit of just doing simple things, not grand gestures, because that doesn't last forever. That's like the motivation thing, isn't it? And just going through and powering through and having the willpower and all that. And it's like, no, just keep track of it every day. Count your wins in the evening before you go to bed, and then journal in the morning, or like just write down your intentions for the day, have a plan, and do that. But then when we were speaking last week, it's easy to miss something or have a few busy days at work. I was like, one of the guys was talking about that on Tuesday, actually, have a few busy days at work and all that. And then you're like, oh, well, I've missed a session. And I was tired that day. So I had a few beers in the evening because I thought it helps me sleep better, which it doesn't, but and then how easy it is to just get into that, because it's easy to fall in. You can kind of fall into that spiral, a downward spiral. Whereas if you're in an upward spiral, you have to keep creating it and keep underneath it, don't you? But actually, if you can keep those habits going and make the realization that those habits are literally changing your neurology as well, the way you think and the way you feel, it gives you more energy and all of that sort of stuff. It brings you up. But it's so easy to just give up on that as well. But it's the more you do it, or the longer you do it for, regardless of willpower, and what was the other one I said? Anyway, it doesn't matter. But regardless of all of that, having to rely on external stuff to keep you going, it's like no, you keep that going. It's easy to fall off it, but the process of just writing it down every day, or keeping on track of it, and having your daily tasks, or having your I must do this today, your non-negotiables. Even if you miss a couple of days, you catch yourself, you get back on it, and you're starting from like a level slightly lower down. You're not crashing right back down to the bottom again. And there's all sorts of books and everything on this about all this stuff. One of them, I can't remember who wrote it, but it's called The Dip. And
I think that might be Seth Godin.
Seth Godin, yeah. And I got taught it as the drift. But you start out on I might have spoke about this before. You start out on something, your goal is over here, you're going along, there's some sort of life event, and then you drop into this chasm that it's impossible to get out of, because you're basically thinking, my goal is in the future. And then you have all these future-based thoughts, which aren't real because it's in the future. So they haven't happened yet. And then what you do is you cycle back to the beginning and go, that's where I was comfortable, rather than just catching yourself and then saying, actually, no, I'll just keep doing what I was doing. That life event happened, or some sort of busyness, or a relative might die, or whatever it is, something that throws you off for a week, or maybe even a month, or a certain amount of time. But then once you get through that, it's like, right, I'll just get back on it again. And that happened with me when I hurt my rib. I used that as an example. I hurt my ribs in January. So I'm probably like 2 months behind of where I was on my program, but 2 months behind what as well? It doesn't matter because I'm doing it forever. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So, I mean, I said this to a member the other week. We were training, and we've all gone through this before in our life at some stage, I'm sure, and lots of people will have, where you become impatient for the results and you try to force progress and, move up to heavier weights or to more reps before your body, wants to, and you get injured or whatever. And I sort of said to the guy, I said, well, there's no rush, you've got the rest of your life to get strong, and that's kind of the way that I know that we think about it now. Yep. And we've literally, I'm going to be training for the rest of my life, So whether I hit a certain target this year or next year or the year after really is irrelevant, and if I hit it in 3 years' time, that's even better, because I should be declining rather than getting better. So if you kind of have that longer term view, it's really important. So I think with this kind of in control versus out of control, I mean, for me personally now, I like the idea of individual people, and that's whether that be me or any of the members of the gym or people I train, almost kind of establishing their own. I don't know, we've had Josh Hillis on before, and we have people on who talk about intuitive eating and, not having rules and not having programs to follow for everything. But I really think if you can set your own parameters around certain things. So I actually very rarely now would consider myself being out of control, because I think I've got certain parameters in place that I will never, in your 20s, you might go out and have 10 pints and, have a greasy takeaway on the way home and throw up in someone's garden and, and wake up with a terrible hangover. I mean,
that sounds like that sounded too real. That sounds like something from experience there.
Well, it is.
Whose garden was it, James?
Well, I don't know. I don't know. I was so drunk, I couldn't remember. but no, you know what I mean? No, but to be honest, when you're in your teens, everyone does stuff. But when you're in your teens, when you're in your 20s, everyone's been through stuff that, and that's part of learning, isn't it? That's part of growing up and getting older. You kind of realize, God, I don't want to live my life like that anymore. And it's stupid doing that. And drinking alcohol to excess, causes you to think differently and to act differently and to speak differently and to get yourself into problems you shouldn't be in and all the rest of it. So I think you kind of so out of control and in control is very different for me now, because I would say that I'm probably never out of control. Although there's times where I'm more relaxed and more lenient, and if I want something, I'll have it. And it's, you know what I mean? I suppose do you feel like you kind of self-regulate yourself, you self-regulate yourself throughout life, and there's probably no times where where your health, your fitness, your strength, your training goes totally out the window, and you don't think about it at all.
No, I mean, I've the importance I've put on it, I never used to. So when I was younger, when I was in my 20s and working, I was I was a trader for an energy firm, so there was lots of drinking involved and debauchery. And like you were the same, Paul. You said like you were in before publishing, you were in working with bands and stuff, weren't you? And it was like a big old party culture. So we had that. We get wined and dined in London, like some top restaurants and stuff like that, and chef's tables and all that sort of stuff.
Some crazy times in a travel lodge.
All
the travel lodges on the M1, the M6, the A roads. They're good places.
But no, it's like I've lost the thread of where I was going there. But like, so anyway, it was all of that, and I never used to worry about my health at all, because I was like, well, I'm healthy, I'm fine, I'm alive. That's it. And the weird thing about that was anyone who did think about it, because there was a few guys who were like, 5 or 6 years older than me, starting to talk about it at work. And I was just like, oh, bloody hell. And they were talking about like getting a new kitchen and all that. And I'm like, oh, for God's sake, come on. Who's like, can we talk about something else? This is, but like, obviously, that's because I was like 25 and I didn't give a toss about houses and kitchens and being healthy and all that sort of stuff. But then as you get to a certain point, then you realize actually, I'm going to need this. I'm going to need to know this. And it became more and more apparent. So now, like after the practice of not just working out or doing sessions and getting stronger and all that, of just like being mindful of why every time I do it, that is one of the things that I need to now apply to other things in my life, like business and things like that, because I can do that easily because it's a non-negotiable. But then doing things to progress business or progress, like different other things in your life sort of thing, it's like what Steve Bush was talking about, where he was really good at what he did at work, and he just applied that to his fitness, and then away he went. So, yeah.
I think what's good about these conversations we have, because I've just kind of made a connection while we've been talking around another concept that we've spoke about before, about identity and self-identity. And I think that's probably the difference, that once you, that being in control, being out of control, I think the identity that I now embody is not someone who does that kind of thing.
Yeah.
So it kind of all goes round full circle, doesn't it? So, I mean, we still have members at the gym who are in their 50s and 60s, and every time we go out for a social, they're, you know, drunk basically, you know, and you know, very, very drunk. And it's just not something that I enjoy doing now. I just don't know, but that's because I've made that decision, and that's my identity now.
Your priorities, isn't it? I mean, one of the reasons I stopped smoking, I mean, often a lot of people, they try and restrict, don't they? They say, well, I'm not going to do something because I know it's not good for me, so I'm going to stop doing it. And what they do is they just provide a set of rules in which they're not going to do this, they're not going to eat this, they're not going to do, you know, stay up late, whatever it is. Well, actually, what I found is the reason when I stopped smoking, it wasn't that I said I'm not going to smoke, because I actually quite enjoyed smoking. You know, I quite enjoyed the fact that it was a sociable thing. It was relaxing. You know, if you got a good cigarette, you know, if you're used to cigarettes, it tasted all right, you know. So I would do it when I was stressed. I'd do it when I was happy. I'd do it when I was bored, you know, do it out of habit. But I stopped doing it because I started running. And eventually the running became more important. And, you know, for me now, training is important. So everything I do is if I turn up and I've been given a plan and I can't hit it, and I'm not physically capable of even being in the mindset to do it, you know, then I get annoyed that I've met. So I will actively seek out ways of managing my day so that the following day I'm in some kind of condition to be able to show up, pick up the 2 kettlebells and do something that's going to be uncomfortable because I weirdly enjoy it.
That's the thing, isn't it? I mean, sorry, Pete, just 1 second. I was just going to say, that's the thing, isn't it? Because I find the training that I get given by Paul, I find pretty tough, you know, most of the time on a good day when I feel good. So I think the thought of trying to do like a workout when you're, you know, even mildly hungover, or where
it's not possible.
You've literally handicapped yourself by, you know, by choices you've made. I couldn't do it. It's not something I'd want to do, or I don't think I could do. And then I would, like you say, I would feel disappointed in myself and frustrated that something I've done, which may have provided a bit of short-term pleasure and relief, has made, you know, something that's important to me, like you said, training, a lot harder and probably set me back. So yeah, sorry.
I mean, I had a 7-minute set in my of kettlebell jerks yesterday. That was in the, you know, that was in my plan. You know, I had, you know, 12 to 14 reps I had to do every minute, 7 minutes, and I really did not want to do it. I mean, because I just thought, God, it's going to be painful, it's going to be uncomfortable, but I knew it was coming, and so the night before I tried to make sure that I was going to be in some kind of fit state to be able to do it, because otherwise I would have given up, you know, because it's the kind of thing where you just want to give up, because when you look, you get to about 5 minutes, you're like, so I could stop now, couldn't I? But you keep doing it. But I knew if I was subpar, I mean, I didn't feel great yesterday and I still did it. But you know, if I really felt awful, I'd drunk the night before, if I'd not slept, if I'd not been taking care of myself, if I was overweight, then it just wouldn't even happen, you know?
Yeah, I mean, I use a thing. This was taught to me by one of my coaches, a guy called Brian Grasso. And he's like he runs a group, and I'm in his group, which is like a mindset and business stuff. And it's all about, if you're not where you want to be in business, but if you're not where you want to be in anything in life, it's down to you and your mindset. Because your mindset isn't getting you to where you want to be. You're not making the decisions to become the person who you want to be. And he uses this for himself, but it sounds weird as well, but it's not his. It's from a guy called Robert Dilts. It's like the NLP type thing of the Dilts model, and he uses like I don't even know. I've not even looked it up properly because I just like he told me how he did it, and I was like, right, I'm going to do that then. So my goal is a beast tamer for training wise, which is a pistol, a pull up, and a press with a 48. And I'm 46 years old and I only weigh 72 kilos. So that's like a big deal. And to be honest, I don't really care if I get there or not because I'm enjoying the training to get there. But I think about it all the time. I'm like, I've had to model it and say, right, who do I have to be to get that? Who do I have to be to get that? And would a person who is going for that go out and get pissed on a Monday night? Or, well, actually, no, because I don't train on a Tuesday. So would they go out and get pissed on a Tuesday night, sorry, when they've got like 100 pistol squats to do on Wednesday morning and 100 presses and a load of pull-ups and all of that sort of stuff? And it's like, would they do that? No, they wouldn't. Well, what would they do? They'd eat well, they'd sleep well, they'd look after themselves, and they'd make sure, because they're paying a coach to do it as well, so they'd find a coach who could help them do it, which is Paul McElroy, so friend of the show. So, and then get them there, and then follow that program, and then any bumps that come along the way, you can get over them, rather than being the person who never sends you videos to him and all that sort of stuff. So then he's like, well, I don't know what your progress looks like. Or you go, I'm a bit injured. And he's like, well, I can't work out why, because I haven't seen what you're doing. He knows exactly what I'm doing. So I send him the right amount of videos every time I've done my session. I never forget, because I get people say to me on a Sunday, I'll be like, because I update my online guys programs on a Sunday. And I'm like, have you done your videos? I haven't seen any this week. And like, oh, I forgot to press record and all that. And I'm like, no, I'm not having that. Do it.
I'll just quickly say, because Lauren Emery, again, friend of the show, who trains at Unique Results, who Finn Bartulan is her coach. So both of us train at the gym, and I record the last set of everything for Paul, and she records the last set of everything for Finn. And on a couple of occasions, there's no way you forget. If you're committed, there's no way you forget. And a couple of times I have not pressed record on the camera's all set up on the tripod, and I've not pressed record, and I've done the set, and I've realized I've not recorded it, and I know Lauren's done the same. And then you just think, oh, I've got to do it again because I haven't pressed record. And then you press record and you do it again because it's that important to you. But that's a horrible feeling when you're doing like a set of heavy squats or something. And then you look across to the camera and you realize, I didn't press record. I've got to do it again.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But that's
just the photo of you squatting partially.
But, but that's the thing within all of that the person who's going to get the result is the person who's going to commit to it, who's the person who's going to do the videos and send them to the coach or whatever it is. But I'm like, I'm going to be that person. And
that's why it's so
negotiation
important that we invest in skills, because if you go in trying to lose weight, or you just go in with a surface level goal, how it's not to say it's not important, but if you just go, you'll only ever get short-term results. And I think one of the benefits of developing skills is that they end up being self-perpetuating, because you start gaining momentum with, I think the only way to stay healthy for long term is to have some kind of intrinsic value in the performance itself. And so, the more you do it, I mean, what we see in our clients, they evolve just going, oh, I really love deadlifts. So let's, next month, let's try and focus on this or whatever. And they start showing up with that excellence, the pursuit of excellence at the forefront. And that's what gives them momentum week to week, month to month. So that it doesn't become repetitive. So it doesn't just become this, I've got to lose weight. And then I lose weight and then I stop doing it. Because why would you stop doing something which adds real value in your life? You wouldn't, I think most people think, I'll lose 10 kilos. They lose 10 kilos and go, well, I've lost 10 kilos. I'm going to stop what I'm doing now. And then they go back to the old habit and then they start the whole process again. Whereas I think, successful clients, they lose the 10 kilos. They've developed a ton of skills on which they want to keep investing in. They don't want to lose those skills. They've created enough habits so they've got a bit of momentum and they just keep doing it. And And then why would they stop? They would only stop if
Yeah.
they decided that they found something else that maybe was more interesting,
But this is the thing, because that's like the short-sighted view, isn't it? It's like, right, well, I've lost that 10 kilos. It's like, okay, so what does a person who's lost 10 kilos then do? What's next? What does that person then do? What does it give you? And that's the whole, in the very beginning, the whole like, why do you want to do this and all that sort of stuff, which is like, you can think about that what you like. We can go down. There's a whole load of rabbit holes you can go down about whether that works or not. But it's like, well, once you lose that 10 kilos, what happens? What happens to the person who's lost 10 kilos, the person who you're going to become? Because you will be different. And then that's where it goes. Because then they can go, well, no, I've got that result. So I'll just carry on doing what I was doing now. It's like, well, you're just going to end up who you were again, aren't you? And that's where that's where this comes in, actually. Like the mindset side of it for me is like, once you get that result and you become a different person, because you will, what would that person then do? What does the person who looks like that or does that or feels like that or has more energy, what do they do? And I was thinking
that's
about
why I'm not interested in a short-term relationship with a client, because
Nah.
you never get to ask those questions, do you?
Nah.
You never get to explore those questions,
And I love that's why I do the mindset side of it now as well, because I love it, because you delve really deeply into that, because that's what holds most people back. And then when they start to realize how they talk to themselves and how they show up and how they actually and their habits and behaviors don't conform to the thing that they actually want, and you want them to converge, which can be easily described as like someone wanting to lose a load of weight, so I'm going to work out. And it's like, yeah, but if you don't sort your diet out as well, then it's not going to work. But if you start with training and then you get so into that, but you're not getting the result because of how your diet looks or whatever, you start to then think about that, because that person would think about that, and then they start to converge. And then when you get the result, you start to think of it more, don't you? Yeah. So
yeah, there's two things. There's one, it comes to mind, is when we had Brett Jones on a few weeks ago, and he was talking about Jim Gaffigan, the stand-up comedian, when he walks into a gym and he sees the fit and healthy people in there, and he says, "You don't need to be here anymore. You've done it. You can go home." It's like,
you've done it. Well done.
Yeah, well done. You can go home. You don't need to come anymore. But if that's all you're going there for, like you say, there's an issue there. And the thing that you just said there, there's one of the members at the gym, Matt Sales, who I think I mentioned, I think before we started recording. He trains really well. He's a normal guy in his early 50s. I think he works within insurance or something. He's in London doing something in an office, which is kind of how I think that most people do it. I'm not sure what he does exactly. But he trains really well. He's really got into his training, and he did the SFG last October, and he's doing the SFB this May. And he trains well. He's strong. He moves well. He's very, very good. But he knew that the diet side of things was going to hold him back a little bit from the body weight stuff. So Nikki at the gym is precision nutrition qualified now. And she sort of was looking for a few people to work with to help her hone her skills and stuff. So he's now working with her to get more of a handle on the diet, to lose a bit of weight, but to feel good and to be better for the body weight stuff. So it's not just, I'm going to lose a few pounds so I can get into the next size of clothes down. It's like got a real functional, tangible reason behind it, like a why, I suppose. But that's only from really wanting to have a skill-based practice and a learning mentality, to want to learn and do different things,
which is different from the way we're taught as children. So typically we're taught how but not why, and we're told that you must do this because that's just what you need to do, and that serves its purpose, because we don't, a 4-year-old, 7-year-old, 10-year-old, well, maybe a 10-year-old, but certainly younger children, they haven't built the framework to start evaluating the value of things. And so you just need to be prescriptive. You need to say, well, you need to learn maths. We all need to know maths. You need to be able to learn to read and write. This is how you learn to read and write. You do it, deliver it, done. And so it's just something you do. And then you get to a certain age where you're like 18. It's like, well, what would you like to do? And you're like, oh, well, every time I've been educated in the past, it's been prescriptive. And now you're asking me what it is to be me and to what do I want to do? Well, I'm human and I want to take the path of least resistance, please, because it's nice. It's nice to not have to, have a kettlebell hitting your forearm for 10 minutes straight. It's nice not to restrict your calories and have to worry about food prep. It's just another thing I have to do. So then all of a sudden you're having to develop a framework to educate yourself on things that you want to do, and you've got to make decisions that haven't been made for you. And I think that's why coaching is valuable, because it's the best of both worlds. It is a path that you've decided to go down with a individual who's walked that walk, who's taught people how to do it. So it's a mixture of prescription and decision. And I think that can be played to most people's strengths. I was given maths homework by my teacher. I did my maths homework. I got good, but I had no choice. I had to do maths because that's what I was at school. Whereas now you have the choice to go down the path. And I think it's good to find someone who can be prescriptive to give you that confidence that eventually that you could become the expert and you can move on to other things. Because even when we built this self-determination, we can train ourselves if we want to. We also choose other areas that we want to have guidance on. And, it's always nice to have a framework, which could eventually get to the point where it's self-perpetuating.
And it is a very small, with the people we're talking to on the podcast and the people who are listening, hopefully, it's a very
large
small
group.
It's a very, well, I gotta say, it's a very, very, even more broadly, the people who don't listen to this, but the people who are interested in, I suppose, self-improvement and pushing themselves a little bit and learning and doing this kind of thing and taking care of their health and their fitness and thinking about what they eat every day is a very small percentage of the population. Like we've used the statistic numerous times that about, I think it was 13% of the population may have a gym membership or something like that. But really, it's less than 10%, less than 1 in 10 people consciously think about the things that we talk about on here every week. And that's not saying that the other 90% are bad people. It's just saying that they're, bogged down and just doing the day-to-day, going to work, coming home, looking after a family, paying the bills, eating what's put in front of them, or eating what they can pick up on the way home at the petrol station, or getting a takeaway. Or so it is a very small group of people who are trying to think like this. And I think that, so anyone who is at least trying to better themselves and trying to have these conversations with themselves and listening to podcasts like this and maybe exercising intentionally and having some level of conscious awareness and some decision making around what they eat and how they eat and how much they eat, everyone should be commended really because it's a very, very small percentage of the population who are actually trying to look after themselves and take personal responsibility for themselves and make their lives better, reading books, listening to podcasts, all that stuff. It's a small group, isn't it? And I hope in some small way we can help people, who are listening to this,
It's outrageously hard because there's so many distractions around. So what you've just described there is perfect. Most people, I'm going to say, most people get up in the morning and just react to stuff all day and then go to bed. And that's pretty much it. That's where you come in like, oh, I haven't had time to think about that. I haven't had time to do this. I haven't had time to do that. God, it's just like, I'm so tired because it's just like bang, bang, bang. And then it's like, right, a week off. I'm going on holiday and I'm going to sit on a beach and get pissed. And then I'm going to come back and go to work and then I'll be relaxed and rejuvenated. And that's basically the way it goes, isn't it? But there's so much distraction from like social media and telly and and like all of that stuff, and then advertising for like all these like fast food restaurants and all of that sort of stuff. And it's all been there for years, but it's just more and more and more and more, and there's more and more money plowed into it. So things like this get to a tiny percentage of of those people, because we haven't got the money to put behind it to get in front of us, like many more people, to get that message out. But it's also the easier thing to do, isn't it? Because you don't have to think about it. But if you can flip that around, even just in a few people, just listening to this or whatever, to say, do you know what? I'm going to start to become a bit more mindful, a bit more aware. Because the whole mindset side of it, I don't know what words to use for that these days, but it's just becoming more self-aware. Know yourself and be truthful to yourself. And then if you can be truthful to yourself, you know what you're doing to hold yourself back, or the things that you're doing that you could change. Just make a small change to get you closer to the person who you actually want to be, rather than just saying, well, that's what I want to be, but I'm just going to do this and I'll be this, and that's enough. And it's like, well, okay, that's cool. And that's fine. But if it doesn't sit well with you, that's where you get the cognitive dissonance, get conflict in your head of like, I'm happy where I am, but I'm not really, but I'll just tell myself I am. And then, well, yeah. And then we'll see what happens with that. So it's, it scares me that I feel it makes me feel a bit sad, actually, because that's what brings on low level anxiety in people. And they have that throughout the day, just low level anxiety all day long, and they don't know why. They've got no idea why. And I know that because I've had it, and I still get it. And it's easy to let that slide, to go down into the spiral, to go down into that spiral and let that slide, to then become a bit more introverted or whatever. And like, just things like that. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but it's quite easy to get onto that slippery slope. And it's harder, it's hard to get out of. And that it doesn't scare me, but it makes me sad. I think it's kind of, I feel it that people have that and they don't know what to do about it. And it's not, you don't have to do that much. You just have to become aware of the fact that it's there for a start, and that you do. Yeah. Not that you do need to do something about it, that you want to do something about it. That's the thing.
I think we'll kind of start to wrap up, but just because I know that, like I say, the next 3 or 4 weeks we've got guests coming on, so I just want to kind of touch on this kind of spiral that we've spoke about a couple of times. So I kind of view it as like a helter-skelter, going downwards, and you're you see like a DNA strand, isn't it? This kind of shape, So you're either constantly, you're always either moving downwards in that spiral, which would signify becoming, less empowered, more anxious, more upset, less in control, unhappy, whatever negative kind of things you want to put onto it, or you're moving upwards where, you feel in control, you feel empowered, you feel happy, you feel fulfilled, all those kind of things. And we had a conversation recently with my members about you're moving down, and sometimes you don't even, and it was actually, I was having a chat with former guest and friend of the show, Chet Majaria. You move down, and sometimes you don't know you're moving down, but you can recognize behaviors that things you're either doing or things you're not doing. So for me, it was like, I just maybe start missing a training session or not training when I say I'm going to, and there's no real excuse or reason not to. I just don't want to train, or my food choices are not as good, and maybe I'm not sleeping as well, and I get more snappy with say Steph and things like that. And I just generally probably withdraw a little bit as well, and I'm less outgoing and want to be on my own more and that sort of thing. And it's recognizing that downward, and then, like you say, it doesn't take a lot to kind of that pattern interrupt and to break that pattern of downward spiral and to start moving back up again. And it could be listen to a positive podcast, read a few pages of a book, go out for a walk, have a good workout, have a good night's sleep, all these things that we've got in control. But I did say to my members, sometimes you're on that downward spiral, and like is the wrong word, but you kind of you're okay with being on that downward spiral, and you want to kind of feel a bit shitty for a bit, and you want to feel a bit pissed off, and you want to be a bit angry, and you want to be a bit snappy, and you want to be a bit withdrawn. And it's when you decide that it's the awareness of recognizing that. And then when you decide you don't want to be, it's how you break that pattern and move back up. And it's usually, like we spoke about a minute, before we started recording, it doesn't have to be a big thing. It's just, have a hot shower, brush your teeth, comb your hair or shave your head or whatever you want to do, and just dress up and go out for a walk, and you'll feel slightly different. It's about changing state, isn't it? And moving. And it's something we all suffer with, all of us, from time to time, Yeah.
That makes me think. I've just been searching through my phone there. I was listening to you.
Yeah, no, that's right.
It looked like I was. Because I've put something in ages ago, and this was something I learned from. She was a guest in the kind of mindset thing I'm in. Debbie Gilboa, she's called. She wrote a book. I can't remember, From Stuck to Resilient or something like that. I'm going to buy it at some point and read it, but I'm reading that much at the minute. But and her definition of resilience was the ability to navigate change and come out purpose orientated. I thought that was brilliant, because you can think about resilience as smashing through stuff and blah, blah, and like all of this and being like, like the SES guys on the telly and all that sort of stuff. But I think that's brilliant. It's like, no, it's just quite gentle. It's like, no, just to basically be able to deal with stuff. Start small, deal with stuff. Like you've just said, you want to withdraw and you want to, and it's sometimes that feeling bad that way can feel good. It can be like, no, I want to feel like this. And it's like, but you don't. And you don't. But you can convince yourself that you do. So if you can get through that one little thing, whatever it is, you can get through it. If it's something like quite small, but it's made you feel like that for whatever reason, if you can get through that and still be on the goal for whatever it is you're going for, you've built some resilience. You've trained that. And then the next time that thing happens, it might not knock you down as much, but something bigger might come along. But then all you're doing is training yourself for the bigger things. So it's being able to overcome something that's slightly more. And then, that's how you build it up. You train it, don't you?
Exactly. No, fantastic. Mr. Paul Bassett, anything before we wrap up?
No, sorry. There are loads of drilling in the background near me. So just had it on mute. No, fascinating. It's always good to go down these tangents.
I think we were a bit more focused this time, though, from than we kind of knew what we were after this time, and it's good. And I just I just read the Matthew McConaughey book, Green Lights, which was very, very good, and I'd really recommend that. And lots of people, I'd say probably, you put a post out sometimes and you get loads of people back, and that's one I put out, and so many people have read it and say it's great, and quite a few people say, "Oh, I've got to listen to it on audio because it's him narrating it, and he's got that lovely kind of that southern sort of drawl, kind of relaxing voice, But no, that was very, very good. Good book that I've read recently. But no, fantastic. Right. So next week we are going to be with Karen Smith, Strong First Master Certified Instructor. And from Texas in USA. Cameron will be on with us next week. And the week after, we've got Dennis Vasilev on, who is the 11 times kettlebell sport world champion, which is a fantastic guest that we've got on in a couple of weeks. And we've got people lined up, like I say, the next 3 or 4 weeks. So I just wanted to try and get a fairly tight session in today with the three of us. Before we go into our next run of guests. So please do like, share, subscribe, leave a review if you're listening on a platform that allows you to do so. And please do, if you can, find us on Instagram, follow us on Instagram, find us on Facebook, follow us on Facebook, find us on YouTube, subscribe on there. It all helps. The more kind of people we can have on there, the more reach we will get and the easier we will be to find. So we will see you next week for episode 138 with Karen Smith. Until then, bye-bye.
You've been listening to Health Odyssey with Peter Lant, Paul Bassett and James St. Pierre. To get your regular fix of hype-free health, you can subscribe and leave a review wherever you get your favorite podcasts. You can find out more on today's and other topics at healthodyssey.com or find us on Facebook or Instagram by searching for Health Odyssey.